Okay, come with me. So I used to go on gigs with him. We had a trio or a quartet, whatever was required. And he just said, okay, watch my left hand. And
Paul Jones is known for his virtuosity and calm demeanor, but few would expect that he has extremely harsh opinions about some famous guitarists, who are the names that Jones has frankly called annoying or boring. And why did he react so strongly? Let's explore the 5 guitarists that John Paul Jones hates the most. The revelations may shock you. Jethro Tull, Ian Anderson. The friction between John Paul Jones and Jethro Tull stemmed from their time touring together in 1969, when Tull opened for Led Zeppelin during their 3rd North American tour. During this period, the bands developed what Anderson described as a kind of football team rivalry. Jones, known for his reserved personality, largely kept to himself during the tour. As Anderson noted, John Paul Jones kept to himself, in contrast to the more outgoing Jimmy Page and the mischievous John Bonham. This reserved nature may have contributed to the disconnect between Jones and Anderson. Furthermore, Anderson's disciplined, intellectual approach to music contrasted sharply with Led Zeppelin's more emotionally driven, blues-based rock. Jimmy Page once remarked, "I think that some so-called progressive groups have gone too far with their personalized intellectualization of beat music. I just don't want our music to be complicated by those kinds of ego trips. Our music is essentially emotional." Anderson himself never fully embraced the rock lifestyle that Zeppelin epitomized. In a 1999 Guitar World interview, he reflected, "We were Led Zeppelin's support act on a rather lengthy arena tour. And although they were party animals and certainly lived life to the extreme, we got on fine with them. But Robert Plant didn't like the idea that I wasn't playing the game." This fundamental difference in lifestyle and approach to music likely contributed to Jones's dislike of Anderson and Tull's music. Additionally, Anderson's outspoken views on taxation and British residency might have rubbed Jones the wrong way. Anderson once criticized Plant and other musicians who complained about UK tax rates, stating it's sad that people go around spouting this out in public, because these ridiculous figures just don't exist. Such comments likely created tension between the bands. Perhaps most importantly, Jones seemed to find Anderson's approach to musicianship pretentious. Anderson's refusal to incorporate American blues influences, which he dismissively termed cultural misappropriation, stood in stark contrast to Led Zeppelin's blues-based approach. Anderson bluntly stated, "I don't think I would want to have a guitar player whose sole interest and influence was black American folk music." Despite Jones's apparent disdain, Jethro Tull earned significant respect from other musicians. Ritchie Blackmore of Deep Purple, for instance, frequently praised Anderson's guitar playing in interviews during the mid to late 90s. This appreciation eventually influenced Blackmore's journey into Renaissance music with his later project Blackmore's Night. Notably, even John Bonham of Led Zeppelin reportedly considered Tull's drummer Barry Barlow to be one of the greatest rock drummers of all time. This professional respect existed alongside the personal differences between band members. By 1972-1973, Tull had reached a level of commercial success that rivaled Led Zeppelin's, with 2 successive albums topping the US charts. They were playing and selling out the same venues as Zeppelin. In 1973, Tull sold more seats at the Montreal Forum than the Rolling Stones had managed in 19. Anderson's technical abilities as a musician, particularly his innovative approach to the flute and acoustic guitar, earned him respect even from those who didn't enjoy Tull's musical style. His flat-picking technique on acoustic guitar displayed influences from British folk guitarists like Bert Jansch and John Renbourn. Though Anderson developed his distinctive approach, Tull's influence extended to progressive rock bands that followed, including Genesis, Yes, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Their fusion of rock, folk, and progressive elements created a template that many subsequent bands would draw from. The band's willingness to create concept albums and incorporate theatrical elements into their live performances also influenced the development of progressive rock as a genre. Anderson's distinctive approach to his craft, focused on composition, technical precision, and European musical traditions rather than American blues, positioned Jethro Tull as unique among their contemporaries. As Anderson himself stated, "For Jethro Tull to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is missing the point, because that's the celebration of all the great music in America. I don't feel we're that way. Not much of what we've done is influenced by American music." Yngwie Malmstein. Jones, a musician deeply rooted in blues traditions and emotional expression, likely found Malmstein's approach to guitar playing problematic for several key reasons. First among these would be the perception that Malmsteen prioritizes technical prowess over emotional content, a common criticism leveled against him. Critics often describe his playing as 100% lightning-fast shredding, 0% emotion. Numerous guitar aficionados have argued that Malmsteen's playing lacks depth despite its technical brilliance. They contend his focus on speed and technical execution comes at the expense of emotional connection and musicality. As one critic bluntly stated, "This is the most dull guitar player I've ever heard. Technique is not nearly as important as making decent music." Moreover, Malmsteen's playing style often comes across as repetitive. Critics suggest he has been playing the same things over and over, relying heavily on harmonic minor scales, diminished scales, pentatonics, and sweep-picked arpeggios. For a musician like Jones, who values innovation and emotional depth, this repetition would likely be off-putting. The perception of Malmsteen as musically one-dimensional appears frequently in critiques. One reviewer noted, "I don't think he could even improvise a blues solo," suggesting limitations beyond his technical specialty. For Jones, whose work with Led Zeppelin demonstrated versatility across blues, folk, and hard rock, such limitations would undoubtedly diminish Malmsteen's stature. Malmsteen's persona may have further contributed to Jones's negative assessment. Known for controversial statements and an inflated ego, Malmsteen once claimed he was the fastest player around, and he often claimed certain players, like Steve Vai, were boring. Such attitudes contrast sharply with Jones's more reserved, less self-aggrandizing approach to musicianship. Lastly, Malmsteen's primary classical influences differ substantially from Jones's blues-based foundation. As one commentator observed, Led Zeppelin is a blues band, and each of the members of Led Zeppelin was a die-hard blues fan. In contrast, Malmsteen openly admits he doesn't love blues that much, creating a fundamental stylistic disconnect between the musicians. Malmsteen's position among the greatest rock guitarists of all time remains contentious. Tellingly, his exclusion from Rolling Stone magazine's list of the 100 greatest guitarists sparked widespread criticism from fellow musicians. Zakk Wylde expressed shock at the omission, stating, "Joe Satriani isn't in there. Steve Vai isn't in there. Yngwie Malmstein isn't in that fucking list. Do you know how good fucking Yngwie is? It's beyond fucking sick." Nevertheless, Malmsteen himself appears philosophical about such rankings. When asked about his reaction to not being included on Rolling Stone's list, he responded, "I get that question every day. When somebody votes for me, then that is beautiful, and if they don't, then that is okay too. I don't understand how that was compiled." He added, "I am not at all upset at Rolling Stone. At the same time, if I win something, then it is very icy. But if I don't, then tomorrow is another day. This is not a sport." Ironically, despite being overlooked in some American publications, Malmsteen has received significant recognition elsewhere. He stated, "I have been voted the #1 guitar player in Japan more than any other living guitar player." Additionally, other notable guitarists have expressed profound admiration for his skills. Scott Henderson remarked, to me, the best guy is Yngwie. Yngwie plays all that harmonic minor bullshit, but he also can play blues. He has some feel in his playing." Guthrie Govan offered perhaps the most balanced assessment, and then Yngwie, who, to me, demonstrates that it is possible to have all these chops and play these outrageous fast things, but still sound like you mean it. This may not be a popular viewpoint, but when I listen to Yngwie playing, there's as much sincerity as there is when B.B. King is playing. Undeniably, Malmsteen's influence has shaped generations of guitarists. Tosin Abasi of Animals as Leaders acknowledged this impact. Then I remember hearing Yngwie Malmsteen and being unaware that you could even do that on the guitar, so then I got obsessed with technique and speed and the harmonic minor scale and various things like that. Some critics argue Malmsteen is underrated rather than overrated, particularly outside Japan and Europe. One supporter contended, "If anything, I'd say he's underrated. His main market is Japan. The rest of the world, well, okay, Europe likes him too, should wake up." His technical innovations have certainly secured his place in guitar history. As one admirer poetically noted, "If you've ever wondered what Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, Vivaldi, and Paganini would have been capable of doing, if they lived in the 21st century, look no further. They all reside within one Yngwie Malmstein, and they are smiling. Ted Nugent. Jones, known for his meticulous musicianship and sophisticated arrangements within Led Zeppelin, likely found Nugent's straightforward, often repetitive approach at odds with his musical sensibilities. Unlike Led Zeppelin's blend of blues, folk, and experimental elements, Nugent's style remained relatively consistent throughout his career. Producer Tom Werman, who worked with Nugent on several early albums, provided insight into how musicians view Nugent's playing. I think he was respected in the beginning, but when he started being political, that overshadowed his guitar playing. You say Ted Nugent's name now and people only think of one thing, which is his political posture. Music critics have frequently suggested that Nugent's playing lacks depth or evolution. As one reviewer noted, Ted Nugent's best work came in the mid-1970s as the result of his partnership with singer-guitarist Derek St. Holmes. After they parted ways in 1978, many critics felt Nugent's musical output suffered significantly. Jones, who's playing with Led Zeppelin, demonstrated remarkable versatility and innovation, would likely find fault with what some perceive as Nugent's musical limitations. One critic pointed out that Nugent's guitar work can be technically proficient yet lacking in emotional range compared to other rock guitarists. Beyond musical differences, Nugent's controversial statements and political activism have generated significant backlash that has affected his musical legacy. His outspoken conservative political views and vocal advocacy for hunting and gun ownership rights have made him a divisive figure since his comments have frequently crossed into troubling territory. In 2016, Nugent faced widespread criticism for posting anti-Semitic content on Facebook, including a photo collage of prominent Jewish leaders with Israeli flags and derogatory comments superimposed over each. The Anti-Defamation League condemned this as nothing short of conspiratorial anti-Semitism. Nugent's inflammatory rhetoric has extended to political figures as well. In 2012, he made comments about President Obama that prompted an interview with the Secret Service. Following this incident, the United States Army canceled a summer concert appearance he had scheduled at Fort Knox. His controversial persona has created complex relationships with other musicians. Carmine Appice, for instance, expressed admiration for Nugent's boldness while acknowledging his divisive nature. Meanwhile, Tom Werman, who worked extensively with Nugent, stated, "I'm a Democrat, and sometimes my friends will say, 'You still talk to Ted Nugent? How can you even work with him?' and explained that we got along well musically and otherwise. We didn't talk about politics." The disconnect between Nugent's musical abilities and public persona was summarized by Premier Guitar magazine. "It's about the guitar, stupid." Even though we here on the PG staff sometimes find ourselves agreeing with various personal feelings expressed by our readers toward interview subjects because of their politics, we keep them to ourselves. Ironically, Nugent himself has criticized modern guitar players for what he perceives as a lack of soul, stating that covers of his songs by bands like Pantera and Motorhead lacked soulfulness and were just too Caucasian. These criticisms reflect Nugent's self-perception as an authentic rock and roll musician deeply connected to the genre's roots, a stance that would seem at odds with Jones's apparent assessment of his playing. Steve Vai. In his early career, Vai's discipline was legendary. His practice routine consisted of a rigorous 10 to 15 hour a day practice schedule, although he has subsequently acknowledged that if I still did those, I would be as good as some people think I am. This dedication helped him transcribe and perform very rhythmically complex music for Frank Zappa, operating on the principle that if started slow and perfected, any piece of music could be played. In this case, the criticism from Jones likely stems from a common perception of Vai as being one of the most misunderstood musicians around. Constantly accused of being a soulless masturbator of the fretboard, critics frequently characterize Vai's playing as just one long lead break, lacking feel, suggesting his technical virtuosity overshadows emotional depth. This perception persists among many musicians who value emotional connection over technical display. As one critic notes, "You don't connect with Satch and Petrucci because their mastery of technique and mastery of music speaks louder than their mastery of conveying emotional messages in their art." The same criticism is often applied to Vai, coupled with the observation that his music simply doesn't sing to my soul for certain listeners. Given these points, it's worth noting that many defenders of Vai argue this criticism misses the mark entirely. To put it differently, it's a common mistake to equate lots of notes and technical ability as lacking in soul or feeling. Vai's supporters contend his music should be approached differently, if it wasn't a lead guitar holding the melodic structure together, but an orchestra instead. Folks would be raving about the wonderful melody and structural brilliance of his music. To clarify Vai's standing in the guitar community, his commercial and critical success speaks volumes. Having sold over 15 million records and won 3 Grammy Awards, his impact reaches beyond sales figures into lasting influence on guitar innovation. Vai's most significant contribution might be his pioneering work with extended-range guitars. As noted by Tosin Abasi of Animals as Leaders, the idea that you could have more than 6 strings on a guitar, you could credit Steve with bringing that to the mainstream. Abasi, who plays 8-string guitars, has built on Vai's extended-range legacy, helping make 8-string guitars more popular than ever. Furthermore, Vai's influence extends beyond technique into guitar design. His signature Ibanez gem guitar, designed in 1985, features innovations like the floating tremolo and the monkey grip, and has become one of the longest-running, most successful signature sitters guitars in history. Among younger guitarists, Vai has attained an almost guru-like status. As Abasi explains, just as a person, he's got this guru vibe. This reputation is reinforced by Vai's generous approach to sharing knowledge through his Alien Guitar Secrets masterclasses and Vai Academy guitar camps, ensuring his influence continues to shape new generations of the best guitarists ever. Joe Satriani. Jones's criticism seemingly centers on the perceived emotional deficit in Satriani's technically precise playing. Ironically, Satriani himself acknowledges this tension, noting that playing all for love requires 2 things that often work against each other: a lot of control and a lot of emotion. Critics occasionally characterize Satriani as a tasteful shredder, whose melodic approach distinguishes him from other technical virtuosos. Yet some listeners find his precision comes at the expense of raw emotional expression. Regardless, many guitar enthusiasts consider this criticism misguided, pointing to Satriani's deliberate restraint and melodic focus. Notwithstanding Jones's opinion, Satriani enjoys substantial acclaim within guitar circles. He has earned 15 Grammy Award nominations, placing him 4th among artists with nominations without winning. Guitar World ranked him 3rd on their list of the 100 greatest guitarists, highlighting his innovative pitch axis technique. Even Jimmy Page's devotees acknowledge Satriani's contributions. As Satriani himself noted about Page, he created a style and a genre, and we all kind of follow it. A statement revealing both admiration and perhaps a hint at why Jones might favor his bandmates' organic style over Satriani's more calculated approach. What do you think of